Do, 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 do. Do, do. Do, 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 do. Just tidying up my workspace a little bit. Hello, Anzen. How you doing? Just got so much work done this weekend that I have to put some pens away. So things are just a little bit organized at the right-hand table beside me for drawing. Just whoops, and I had butted the camera. All right. Well, so first things first, campaign's still going. So I'm still drawing Witch tonight. As I believe there are like 3 Sundays left this month. I believe there are. I should look at the calendar. Today's the 15th. We're pretty much halfway through the month. So yeah, so next week, 22nd, and then on the 29th, 2 more witches will be done live on tonight's show. But one of the things I can show, again, if you haven't backed the campaign yet, please do. If you can't afford to back the campaign, that's perfectly fine. But if you want to support me, please share the link to anyone you think is interested in sexy witches. Campaign for the pre-launch, the URL for the pre-launch is the same for the actual campaign. So it's nice and simple. We are just over 14.5 thousand. That sounds like an awful lot. It means the book is definitely happening. But it also means that very little else other than getting the book done is happening at this point. We honestly, we have to be somewhere in the I think at the 20,000 to consider it a moderate success based on how much everything costs these days. Everything's just, and I get it. Everyone's tight. Everything's expensive. But doing something like that like this is just as tight as expensive as everything else. So yeah, so anything you do to support in terms of like showing it to someone you think may actually want this book, that's incredibly helpful at this point. With 18 days left to go, there's not a huge amount of time to get the word out. I still got some more interviews and podcasts I've been doing that are coming up, starting to broadcast, which is great. So that's going good. So this is my beginning of a stream plug. I finally finished the Elric piece. I'm pretty proud of it. I'm very rarely doing something along the lines of, I wonder if that actually would look better closer up. There we go. So you can really see the red there. I scanned it and that red kind of shifted. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get it to match the in-person color. That red is very subtle in person. It gets a little stark on the scan I made of it. But I'm very happy with the overall turnout of the piece. I got the skylight glow happening the way I want. I got some nice reflected light coming off of Elric's white skin and hair here, and that kind of demonic touch of the red in Stormbringer as it sucks up the blood and souls. So I'm actually pretty happy with that. I'll be sending that out this week. And this is just based on like having to get back to it piece by piece. This is the longest commission I've had to work on in quite some time. So yeah, so that's I've been sharing this piece a little bit every week as I've just incremental progress, and I finished the last of it, most of it yesterday, um, and and I think I did a little bit of more white touch up here. I wanted a little bit more flare of the white paint coming out this way here. It just felt more like I watched some videos of like slow motion moving cameras through like areas with skylights like that, and the light kinds of bleeds out in different directions based on sun position. So yeah, so I'm pretty happy with it. Oh, I'm very happy you're happy with it. So it's not just one sided. So yeah, so I'll try and get this out to you next this week coming up. And today's witch penciled already. I've actually penciled a couple witches just because deadlines are starting to press on from different directions. I decided to make today a witch day, so I got like 3 witches penciled today, and this is the one I get ink tonight. Um, I may not ink certain areas just to make this a little more easier to get past the algorithms that are searching for videos that have those areas delineated. Um, and again, it's the witch with the broom over her shoulder. She's in the forest because I like drawing wood trees. So I'll probably, for tonight, again, try and keep this to about an hour because I want to just focus on finishing this and maybe start on another one to just get ahead a nice jump on the week. So tonight I'm definitely going to focus on the hat and the face, of course, and the hair. There's leaves falling down from the trees because we're at that time of year. Um, if I finish that quick enough, I'm going to do work on the broomstick, and then I'll work on the rest of the body. Again, leaving out then there. And that's probably what will take me roughly an hour. The detail work in the trees and everything. Um, that's probably best done off camera because I end up rotating the paper so much and like adding stuff and removing stuff with the white paint and everything that it's going to be hard to follow. It's better if I just do it stupidly fast. Thank you, thank you. Again, these Fison dolls come in like really handy. You actually can get that curvature in the hip really nicely here. So I think it was like about 130 Canadian for this. The head is way too small for this body. Which is, honestly though, this one's better than my male one. My male one, I got the oh god, what's the actor who played Captain America? I got his head because it was like cheap. And it was a nice standard heroic handsome head, and it doesn't stick on the stump from the Fison model at all. So that was an experience. But I think these Fisons are a good investment for an artist who wants to use reference. Although you have to know your proportions. You have to know your proportions. Um, these shoulders are way too wide. The head's not proportionate to the rest of the body. The rib cage is too long. The hips are strangely off. On the male one, which where is it? Probably buried somewhere. The male one, the arms are incredibly long. So every time I use that for photo reference, one of the first things I do is after, like, it's usually I'm using it for lighting or like weird complex poses. One of the first things I have to do is I immediately have to adjust the arms like crazy, shrink them down because they're just too long. But those are good problems to have because the time saving from being able to say, well, how would this look in this angle? Just pose this Fison figure, take a picture, look at it, and go, yeah, okay, that's pretty close, and then you adjust it. It makes the work go faster, and anything that makes the work faster and better is good in this line of work. You know what? I'm going to start with the 005 Oto pen. Also, probably should put on my glasses. There we go. Ape arms, very much, very much. It's really weird. Sometimes it doesn't show up certain angles, certain poses. But sometimes, oh my God, you look at it and you go, what the hell is wrong with this? So whenever you pick up any sort of drawing model, double check it against your standard human proportions. I honestly think proportions probably a slightly greater priority to drawing the human figure than muscular anatomy. So if you can get your skeletal anatomy accurate with proportions, everything else is almost gravy at that point, because almost everyone's wearing clothing and everything. And that kind of covers up a lot of it. All right, so let me get this face in, because as I always say, if I screw up that face, I'm probably just going to print out my pencils again and start again, because getting that face messed up is a terrible start to a piece. And as always, if anyone has any questions or they want me to address anything while I'm shooting the videos, this is the best time to do it, even if it means I'm not finishing the work on camera tonight. That's of lesser importance than my connecting with people who want to watch these videos. Yeah. So if you want me to demonstrate something I do, and it's a little break away from the drawing, do not worry, because most of these drawings will get done after stream session. This is my opportunity to show you how I just do the basic work. But if you want specifics, just ask. Wow, that was a quick face. All right, that face is done. I'll pull that 005 out again when it comes time to do the hair, because that super fine line always makes that hair look more real. The extra super fine line. Because I believe I talked about this before. Hair is best looked at as simple shapes, masses, and everything, and then you add superficial details to make it more complex and appear more complex while maintaining that simple value shape everything. And I think I picked that up from an article about John Singer Sargent, one of my favorite artists, and how he paints hair, just breaking it down into masses. So that's one of the tricks I learned over the years. I feel bad for all those artists who do that super high level of photorealism where every single hair has to be drawn or painted. That just seems almost like madness to me. I think I owe a lot more to slightly more simplified, stylized artists. Joseph Clement Call, who's a collection I showed a week or two ago. I still got like white paint in my hands from yesterday, even though I showered and scrubbed my hands. It just gets in there. That's from splattering on the artwork piece. Yeah, so it's like, yeah, keep things a little simpler. It allows the work to progress a little faster, and then you can focus on the stuff that really catches the eye. I mean, hair's attractive. It's a good idea to have well done hair when you're drawing something, but no one actually is, especially if it's a new drawing of a witch. No one's going to go out of their way and say, "Wow, look at the way you drew that hair." If they are, then you did something terribly, catastrophically wrong with making your witch attractive to the viewer. Yeah, that's popping kind of well. And just pull this out a bit more. Sometimes the ink, you see things that just aren't apparent in the pencil drawing. Just want to make that rim of the hat come out a little bit further to balance out with how much is on the back end. Oh, I saw in the other comments. Here we go. Hey, Raul, thank you for showing up. That's a really lovely thing to say. I hope I make it enjoyable. Oh my God. Yeah, the eyes are, the eyes are fun. I love drawing eyes. The decision to not draw eyes here wasn't so much a time saver. I mean, it's like it would be that other additional thing where it's like, well, if I get the eyes wrong, I'm printing out the drawing again, starting over. I did do a drawing of the eyes for my con banner, my art rep couldn't find my Second Coming con banner. So I printed up a new one for Baltimore last year, and I decided to do a witch because I was drawing witches at the time. And I decided, since I can't do the nudity for the witch at a convention banner, I could compensate by drawing the eyes. And she got crazy eyes. I wouldn't necessarily say that all the witches have crazy eyes, but the one I drew for that banner, it's on my Instagram account. If people want to see it right away, I don't have a printout of it on hand. They kind of stare into your soul and kind of go, yeah, I'm gonna make a nice tasty treat of that. Plus, she's got a magic spell with a frog glowing in the middle of it, which is fun to draw. But yeah, the decision, the big time-saving decision with the witches last year was when I decided. Initially, I was going to do long gloves and thigh-high stockings, also fishnets. And very quickly after drawing gloves, I went, you know what? No, not going to do this. Not going to do the thigh-high fishnets. Just a little too much of that cross hatching, cross contour cross hatching, and that would have destroyed my wrist. I think I'd be in agony just getting that curvature around the thigh and everything, and not messing up the forms. Well, yeah, I probably shouldn't ink that. Let's see, here we go. Yeah, Barbaric 1 was fun. I did a couple of covers for that. One was a retailer exclusive, and the other one was for Vault. I got both up as possible rewards on the Coven Zoop. And yeah, and anywhere you can find a little bit of Chaikin is a good place. Chaikin's got a campaign running right now too. It's Fargo. It's I got a pinup that I'm working on. It's one of those pieces where it's like I got to run halfway into it. I went, my initial layout, which I was happy with, is terrible. So I've changed the layout, and I'm redoing it. I would have been done this weekend otherwise. It's one of those things where it's kind of like, oh, this is going good, this is going. No, it's not. So having to restart is not fun, but I'd much rather end up with a really good piece at the end of it all, and that works with Howard's book than it does with just getting it done. I hate to be in a position where you just have to get it done because it's done is better than not done, or not getting it done means it might never get done. So yeah, so I'll probably show that next week, assuming I get it done this week. I'm also working on a lot of Conan stuff. I did all these layouts with Jim Zub, and I've been transporting them to the giant boards. I don't think I can share any of that yet. We're in transition, getting a different editor for the project, I believe. There's been some movement and some adjustments to things getting done. So I think it's just for like speed and all that stuff. There's some changes. So it's like I'm just waiting for new people in connection with the project to get in place and up and running. So that's good. And I still don't have a deadline for the whole book, which is also one of those things that kind of kills momentum. If you don't know when it's due, it's not like you're a work for hire assignments like working for myself. If I'm working for myself, I know I only have a little bit of time before I have to go and do something that pays bills. So I'll take all the time I can to work on my own stuff. But if it's work made for hire thing, I know I'm going to get paid. So it's better to let that time for the project be defined before you dive in too much. So I'm going to have, I decided not to have any leaves in this zone of the piece. There's going to be some blowing leaves going across. I might have one in front of the hat. I might end up using some white paint to make the leaf pop out. But this area here, I find that any area where you have like fingers, hands, complex relationships between objects being held, or like overlapping things like hair and the broomstick, or the details in the broomstick, and the broom's already cut off. If I started layering things on top of that, like here, let me just draw like a leaf here. Okay, just that little shape, which is supposed to read as just one of many of these little leaf shapes I'm going to be drawing. Some are going to be in shadow, some are going to be catching some light, they're going to be curved, various sizes. Some are going to be like little dots or flicks to imply that there's like a vast distance full of leaves falling. But if I start throwing these in a detail area where I want the eye to clearly read what it's seeing, it's going to distract. It might actually change how the drawing is read. For example, I completely outlined the hat here. I can do a leaf here. Has to be big enough to be in front of the hat. And even though there's a line here, what I can do is after I render the rest of this hat, I can do a little bit of white paint, and suddenly that leaf's in front of the hat. So that's part of how I handle the depth of my drawings. I can do, you know what? I can do another leaf here, do a bigger leaf. So I'll do the same thing there. It's like I'll probably go back in with white paint on that little bit of hat there. And that's a simple enough dark shape that I can break that up. Can even like throw a little one back behind the hat that's close to it, but it's a dark shape, and there's enough space between it and the hat that'll read as far away. So there's a lot of things you can play with, but there's certain things you want to be able to be read simply. And speaking of simply, let me get some black here in the hair just to make this pop a bit more. This is one of the few areas in my witch drawings where I actually put a lot of solid black, a lot of grays. Allow the things just to tie together a bit more. I might do some like thick blacks, like overdone chunky blacks in like the bushes and underbrush here, and then with drawing leaves on top of it, and maybe even going with white paint and drawing branches and other stuff, it'll actually break it down into a nice dark gray zone that'll make her pop from the background more. And in the trees, I can do like a whole bunch of dark bark texture to imply that the leaves that we can't see are casting shadows here. You know what? I might actually do that. I haven't made a decision what kind of tree this is. Not a birch because I want it to go dark. So I got the trunk going up here. I want it a little too wide there. So let me make it narrower here. There we go. So I'm just going to give it standard, textural bark. Not really a very specific tree. I like drawing trees quite a bit. And sometimes I'll actually go to draw a specific tree because they have like special branches and curvature of how they grow from the trunk and everything. But sometimes just a generic bark, like a textural thing that allows me to do like just scribbly lines that overlap and create shapes and visual texture that allows everything to stay in the focus where I want it to stay. Because I believe, hang on, let's grab these. Here we go. See here. So you can see in here, I should probably cover that. In here, I use my rubber stamps to do a nice gradation and tone on top of like very suggestive branches. And then I used Pentel correction pen because it gives a nice goopy dot pattern. And I just painted out some highlighted brushes. So it just feels like a tree. So that's a very simple way to do it. No trees there. This is all mushrooms, pumpkins. In this one, everything's implied. Just scratchy hatched lines, a few very tiny leaf type shapes here. I want everyone to be looking at the utility pole. And then we got leaves flying through the air. And we're high up, so the leaves aren't going to be as high. Cats on the couch, witch on a chair. Here's more of that, my completely made up tree. I think it's loosely based on oak bark. But I've seen enough of different trees that have kind of coarse vertical streams of bark going up and going around through like this. It's not real. It's not a real tree. I'm not really looking at real trees. The leaves are completely made up, just kind of like generic leaf shapes, because I want everyone to be looking at this. Bed, more pumpkins, stairs. Oh, here we go. And this is me drawing birch trees because I wanted to draw birch trees. And it creates a nice white space and still allows me to frame the witch rather nicely and with some underbrush here. So that's just a range of trees, tombstone, giant skull. So, but if there's a specific story and needs evergreens, I'll pull out reference for evergreens. I just did a cryptid story for Ahoy, and it's set in a Pacific Northwest forest. So I spent a bit of time before really diving into that story, figuring out a way to draw those trees without having to slavishly draw those trees, because it's backgrounds for the comics. So, and what I get to do here is I get to imply shadows going across the bark, and that'll make the broom pop against the dark shape in the background. Let's put another branch going out this way. I wasn't expecting to go off on trees here. Let's see here. Hang on. Oh, wonderful. Yeah, Fargo looks amazing. Oh, you found Crazy Eyes. Yes. Yeah, I like size too. There's I got a long handwritten list of witches I'd like to draw this Witchtober. Some I won't. I had some friends who actually wanted to pose for witches, so I got some photos of some friends who said, "Turn me into a witch." I've done a couple. They all want to be anonymous, so I've done a couple. Not going to say which. And I got some more of those to do. Hopefully, I can get those all in. And some of them is since I just insinuated that the witches went to war with giants, which is it kind of came to me almost like on a whim. Richard Case is doing a painted version of Inktober, doing these lovely little watercolors, beautifully delicate little sensitive drawings on toned paper, and he started drawing skulls with the character that's become kind of like the lead in his project. And I just kind of, you know what? That's one thing I got to do. Witchtober is a Halloween spooky season thing, and I haven't drawn any skulls, so I decided to just I was going to have a witch sitting on a giant pumpkin because pumpkins, and I went, you know what? I'm going to swap it out. I'm going to make that a skull, which was fun. And so now I'm probably going to draw more skulls because skulls are fun to draw. All that spooky season stuff. I love me drawing all the spooky season stuff. So yeah, so you can see that dark shape of that tree allows the broomstick here, which is leading in through the rest of the image here. And there's going to be a dark shape here, which is going to pop this part of the broom forward, but I'm going to have some light hitting this side of the bark. So this will be lighter, and it's going to go towards shadow there. So the dark glove and the white broom, they're both going to just simultaneously move forward because they're both against light and dark, which is going to just make it pop nicer, to my mind. I can probably even do something like just have it go down towards light there. So I have that dark come here. Oh, someone seen me draw live. I'm trying to remember, was it this year or last year? They were very upset with how just random my scribbles look. They said, you're clearly not doing anything seriously because you're just scribbling everywhere and hoping it turns out. And it kind of ignores the point. I've been doing this long enough that I can do these brief bursts of scribbling that give me exactly the lines I want. It's not a bragging thing, but it was really strange. Someone who was complaining about my draw leaves there, about my doing lines like that, and I realized they probably have a bunch of art instructors saying you have to be super careful all the time. And so I didn't get upset with the person, of course. I kind of thought it was funny. But no, the longer you do something, what's the saying? First you get good, then you get fast, then you get good and fast. And I'm in my mid 50s. I better be good and fast at this point. I can, and you learn your tools. You learn your tools. It's really important. Oh, thank you, Raul. I want to have more range. I mean, I just did another mushroom piece. I did a couple of mushroom pieces last Witchtober. And so for me, it's kind of like a band on tour. You kind of got to do the greatest hits. And I know the mushroom thing was really popular, but I got to do new material too. So the giant skull comes in. At some point, I'm going to have to draw a witch with a scythe. I like the idea of scythes being the weapons the witches use if they have to go into combat. I don't know if witches have to go in combat now in the current story, but I know historically, women with power would always be attacked. So, of course, witches would have weapons of defense beyond just spell casting. This ain't D&D, man. They're gonna have scythes. So I'm thinking like little hand scythes. I'm also thinking that if we do get into like the mid 20K, that's going to be the sign that I have to do the witch graphic novel, or at least a witch graphic novel, and one of the things will be showing how witches make their brooms. And to my mind, the witch's broom is like a Jedi's lightsaber. Not that the witches are Jedi, but every witch has to make their own broom. They have to harvest their own wood. They have to harvest their own straws and grasses for it. And there's a procedure to making the wood hard and magical enough to support the weight of a witch and fly. And so that's one of the things I want to get into. I'm just world building like mad with this stuff, which is so much fun. So can you see that there's some light hitting the tree there? Just a slight deviation from the really dark shapes up here. And I could even, let me grab it's right here. I can even do this. I can, imply that there's some shadow, like serious shadow hitting that side of the tree there by filling in some of that open hatching space. Hopefully, yeah, because that'll read this, like, even with the white in there, it'll read dark as value. It's one of the important lessons I got in art school was, yeah, I'm using the 3 again. I should probably drop back to the 1 because this is further back. Squint to see the values. Values are a key component to developing your composition. And if you control your values and your shapes into your composition, the eye goes exactly where you want it. So I have this upside down inverted V shape that's going to be sandwiching the witch. There's going to be this dark shape going all across the underbrush, which is going to make the white of her body. And it's part of the reason why I don't do tone into witches' bodies anymore. It's an affectation, it's a stylization. It actually implies a bit that they're glowing. Occasionally, I do a little bit of shading still, but if you look at the earlier witches I was doing last year, I was rendering them just like regular people. But as I got into it, the more I thought about it, the more I like the idea that they're kind of filled with magic, which actually fills them with a little bit of light. And that just became one of the things I learned about how I'm drawing these witches as I go. Let's see here. Well, thank you so much, Raul. Yes, if we get the support, and I gotta say, it's a little weird for how popular the witches are. And this isn't a complaint because I'm very happy with the support, but I'm actually surprised just buying the book. Um, we don't have more than 159 backers. That could be a failing of my ability to promote the Kickstarter, but I would just think that how popular the base content is, there'd be more people who'd want these drawings. So hopefully we'll get into like 22 to 25,000 at the end of it all, and then we can say, okay, well, this is all the money for the book. I got money for another project. I'll be pulling out of that, but to be a money like if there's enough for a month or two. I mean, subsistence living, of course, but a month or two to do just work on the witches. That's around 40 pages, and I'm thinking of doing a 48 to 64 page book. And there would be an additional 31 panel story that would be serialized through next year's Witchtober. So there would be it's right now it's looking like it's episodic. There's going to be a specific group of witches in the Coven. There's going to be a new Coven member, and so you would actually get to reveal the world building to the readers as they go through the graphic novel. But in addition to that, there would be a 31 panel, not 31 page, 31 panel story. Now, that would be a little weird because some panels might be, full page width. So you might have to like scroll sideways on Instagram to see them. But there would be a complete short story that would also be part of the book. So it'd be like a 48 to 64 page graphic novel about the witches, plus it would include the 31 panel, which is probably going to be about 6 to 8 pages of story that would be explicitly told through Witchtober 2024. That's on top of the other creator-owned stuff I want to do. I want to. There's a Viking horror story I really, really, really want to do. I told it to a few of my friends, and they're kind of excited, and they want to see it too. So witches and Vikings. That's. I want when I die, I want people saying, "Wow, Richard Pace drew witches and Vikings," and we're happy he did that. So you can kind of see I kind of shifted from focusing on the witch to focusing on the trees. Hope that's okay. Hey, JC Dragon 81, happy Sunday. Hope you enjoy me drawing trees. I was really just going to focus on the witch hat. In fact, you know what? I'm going to let's get back to that a bit. Let me get that. So I want a little bit of a breeze running through here. Yeah, it works. The hair is being blown against her back. Let me delineate her back here a bit. One of the other things I get into is why the witches all have dark hair, why they all have all these crazy hats. Why the fishnets? I honestly, to be 100% honest with you guys, I don't know why the fishnets yet, other than I like drawing them. I will, before I get around to it, we'll get into why the fishnets are there. There's, I have ideas that are just not good enough yet. I will come up with a good idea sooner or later. And all this area here, I can even jump over to the 3, which will make it darker faster. I can just do really vast, random, overlapping scribbles. And I'll go over and I'll do like dark brush strokes with my pocket pen. Saying pocket pen actually sounds bad. My pocket brush. I can just do like, and because they're just crude brush strokes, they just read like leaves in shadow. And then when I go on top of them with white paint and then more pen work, it just has all this depth and this reality to it, which I really like. Gotta be careful I don't splotch right onto her thighs. Oh, that didn't sound good either. I think I talked about this before. One of the things I want to do after Witchtober is done is I want to start having additional artists as guests, or even writers, just to have someone to talk to explicitly as part of the process of drawing. So there's no moments of dead air like I just gave you there. Like initially, I was trying to play music, and the sound quality was terrible. I think some of you might remember how terrible the sound quality is, and that was above and beyond that weird robotic mic effect I had a while ago, which apparently is easily fixed by just unplugging and replugging in the speaker or there's the mic. So lesson learned. Oh, the other thing I noticed is my thumbnail looks terrible at full size on YouTube. So I think I have to upload slightly higher resolution thumbnails for because they're so fuzzy. Look fine small, but when they blow up to the full screen size on YouTube, they're like, ugh, look terrible. Terrible, I tell you. So you can see how this is already, even though there's a very matte and slightly darker quality to the brush pen work. That's the platinum carbon ink. you can see that it's actually going from like what's getting some light in the atmosphere into like a real dark shadow, and it's just going to make everything else visually pop. And as I come out of this, I'm going to very quickly abandon the thicker pen into a finer, like jump down to the D01. It's like the contrast of the thick lines versus the fine lines just seems to suggest more information and detail without having to laboriously draw it. See how that works, guys? It's a really weird thing. You just certain things just work like it's almost like magic. You learn a little spell, and you can get that information out. And again, there's going to be like falling leaves in front of this. I'm probably going to draw them. In fact, I'll show you. I always shake these up because sometimes they separate. And it's not fluid's not squeezing out. Come on. Nope, this one might be dried out inside the tip. There's another one. I got a bunch of these. There we go. Here, got another one. It's a weirdly more pen-shaped one. All right. So there's going to be leaves falling down through here, so I can actually draw a leaf. When these dry, I'll outline them and actually draw some details on top of the correction pen. And it'll actually have much more of a sense of leaves. So I'm going to leave that alone for a second, let that dry, because this stuff, you can see it has a little bit of shine to it. And that sticks a little bit even when it's dry, but you want to give it a good shot to completely dry up. Just going in with the 03 to just thicken up the hair pressed against her back. Also gives you that extra range of strokes of line just to create visual interest and suggest depth. And there's going to be some hair coming down here. This is where the armband and the forearm is going. So this is going to be this is where this armband is. These dry. All right, cool. They're dry. I'm going to grab the not that 01. So you can see this big leaf here. I'm going to outline it initially so I can refine the shape so it's not just a blob. And then I can draw some more leafy details on it. Now, some of those leaves start crumbling and stuff. And something about, especially in the areas where there's like scribbly line work, just by surrounding the white shape with a contour line, just makes it pop even more. Makes it feel three-dimensional. See how that works? Here we go. Oh, here we go. Whiteout was the bane of my, yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. It's the formulation I think has changed quite a bit over the years. I remember the original liquid paper. Was it what was it called? The little like they almost look like nail polish, little plastic nail polish tubes. And the brush was terrible. And it was like you'd try and use it, and you would end up with something that did not look good. It'd be this thick gloopy gloop that would just pile up everywhere. Um, yeah. Let me get that contour of the butt right. Maybe that line up a bit. And we'll put a little bit of thickness here in the lower back. Probably heavy up that line too. Cool. All right. How are we doing time wise? 7:51. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish the hat, which is going to take a little bit. It's going to be a lot of rendering, and then I'm going to do the white out with the leaves in front of the hat, and that'll be it for tonight. I decided to do a kind of a weird. I've done it before, kind of like almost like a 1970s weird pattern on the hat band. I haven't gone as crazy with the hats as I did last year. I don't know why. Like I did some like really bizarro hats. I mean, I did one hat that was I think 3 feet tall. I mean, how could she walk through a door? And then she had like a little bell in it, and she was like playing with cats. I got to do some strange hats again before too long. Some of those hats were just stupid fun. That. And I already got the light coming from this side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go. So I still have that pattern, that wave going through the hat, but now it's a little subdued, becomes obviously it's on a darker fabric. And then this part of the hat's going to be the darkest part of the brim. So I can go pretty dark here. I'll make that leaf pop even more when I get to it. And if I want to be careful, what I do is I just take a little bit of Post-it. I try not to throw them out after one usage. I try and use them a few times. So I often will rip off the part of the paper that gets too soaked with ink to be useful. And you just use them as a quick, easy little mask. So I'm also going to apply some shadows, getting that hat. Okay, let me do again, since this is darker, sometimes what I'll do, I'll demonstrate it while I talk about it. The shadow side of the hat, I'll actually fill in black with the brush. I don't have to be too careful because everything's so textural with these hats. And then I work the, let me get that value there. And I work towards the darkness shadow of that brim. And I don't, because everything's a coarse texture, I don't have to be too careful with the cross hatching. It doesn't have to be slick cross hatching. I just have to make sure I get those values across. The cats have taken over. Oh, are you looking at the one with all the cats sitting on the couch? All right, I think we're almost at 8. Um, does anyone have any questions right now? Any suggestions? Any observations? Anything you want to yell at me about, saying you should have done this? No. Not sure what the actual delay is between my saying something and you guys hearing it. Seems to be like at least 30 seconds. Do I use? Yes, if my first pass of drawing hands or feet isn't working, I'll immediately either take a photograph of my own hand, or I actually have somewhere in my shelf, I have some books that have photographs of hands in different positions holding different objects. So if it doesn't immediately come out of memory, instead of fighting with it for hours and fixing, which I know I can do, I've been drawing hands long enough. I know the structure, I know the anatomy, all that stuff. I know I can do it, but everything's about deadlines. And if I can draw a hand from a photograph in a fraction of the time it would take me to draw it either from memory or from just looking in the mirror. I have a mirror by my drawing table, holding my hand in front of the mirror, and then drawing it, looking at it in the mirror. I will have. I mean, I feel obligated to do that. I'm sure there's. I'm sure there's artistic Puritans who think that everything has to be somehow drawn from your imagination, which never made sense to me because, I mean, all the old masters that we study and revere, they all used models, all of them, and that's just the way it's been. It seems to be almost like a comic thing, where it's like how realistic and how amazing can you draw without looking at photo reference. And if you work in a more like I cartoon, especially when I'm doing comics, I simplify, I stylize. Um, um, like for these are these are in many ways these are illustrations. So I'll sit down and I'll figure out all the anatomy, but there's nothing. See if I can find a piece of scrap paper I can just throw. No, I'll have to grab a pad. Hang on a second. There we go. And probably should use a pencil for this, but a dark one so it shows up. Here we go. It's just a 10B. All right. What I got here? Nothing in this pad. All right. So if I'm drawing a hand, I know the basic structure of the hand. I know that there is that slightly curved wedge. Okay, and you break that up into finger hole slots. I mean, it all comes down through there. So that's that basic structure. You know, there's what I when I was teaching, I referred to it as the bag of marbles. There's all these small bones here in the wrist, and they all interlock so you can do all that range of motion with your wrist. So I call it a bag of marbles. Same thing with the ankle. All right. So you know that basic structure, and you also know that coming off of here, you have the thumb. And these are really long monster fingers. There's like a weird set of arcs. Where all the joints line up. So if you know that basic structure, and actually this should be a little bit longer because fingers, this part of the hand is as long as this part of the hand. If you know the breakdown of the hand here and you can visualize fingers curving in space. You can start assembling that hand in that space. All right, so you can actually get those joints organized. Now, you can sit down forever and get those accurate, or you can actually, and this is why I started this, see, if you know the structure and how to assemble everything in 3D space, you can actually come up with simpler shapes. Say I have to draw someone writing something or drawing something. That's the simplified form, which will read as a hand holding a pencil or a pen or a brush, or let's make it a brush, is all the information you need to go, because that immediately reads as a hand. Now it's messy. Of course, I'd clean it up and everything, but this is how you take your structural proportional information, study how it moves in space, and then you simplify it, and then it becomes everything you need for comics. For an illustration, I would do an underdrawing, make sure it's in proportion to everything else in the figure. I would take the time and say, okay, well, if this is here, this is probably higher, right? And I go, okay, well, then there's the muscle that comes across here. It's a dude, so it's going to be a thicker forearm. And you know what? There's probably going to be a sleeve folded up here. So we do that. And then you know what? Okay, then we got to do the veins on the top of the hand. So we got to figure out where they go. Maybe the person's little pinky comes out to support the hand more when they're drawing this, so that the pinky can actually be coming out like that. Then you have to figure out how much of the finger you're going to see, how much of this finger curves up, and the knuckle coming down. And maybe this finger even gets pressed inward more, so you actually get those fingers. And that's illustrative drawing, trying to get a more naturalistic feel of it. And you can get there from comic drawing, cartooning, or simplified hands. But sometimes, again, in comic books, most people don't look at the art for more than 5 to 10 seconds. They look at it, their brain takes in the full of the image, they read the captions or word balloons, and they move on to the next panel. So spending laborious amounts of time into every single panel is almost anti-comics, which is true but not true. I mean, in the 90s, I was a huge fan of Alex Ross's work, his photorealistically painted comic books. As I got older, as I got more experience, and my attitude towards comics changed, and I prefer a little bit of cartooning, a little bit of making the reality that you're looking at plastic. The more you adhere to reality, the more you're essentially trying to be a movie on paper, or fumetti, like the photo comics that started up in Italy. And I'd much rather have the hand of the artist more apparent in comics, if that makes sense. Hopefully that wasn't a lot of blather. Yeah. Let's see here. Toes are weird. Oh, and you know what? Let me do thing. Okay, so I got a little trick for drawing feet, especially feet are on the ground. What I like to do is I like to draw a almost like cartoony footprint on the ground, and use that as the basis for feet. So yeah, that's generally how I jump at feet all the time, and it just makes it so much faster. This isn't even a very particularly good one. This is again, how you saw how fast I did it. I mean, there's no paying attention to really where the ankle bones are, or how everything slides up. But that is also, again, this is good enough for comics. Just remember that the big toe kind of points up, and all the other toes kind of curve down, and you got a foot. All right. Any other questions? I guess that's it. All right. So I'm gonna take a little break, rest my throat. I had like a weird sore throat on Friday, and I'm still recovering a bit. I'm not sick. I think I was talking too much with all the podcast interviews. I'm gonna finish this witch. So that witch is going out first thing tomorrow morning. Um, this Tuesday, the 7 witches done from from last Wednesday to this Tuesday will go up as possible rewards for people holding off yet. Um, oh God, now I want pizza. Thanks, Anson. Um, yeah, and next Sunday I'll be here. I'll be drawing yet another witch. Hopefully, you guys aren't getting sick of them yet. And I hope all of you have an amazing week. And I hope all of you get to come back and hang around next Sunday. Have a great week, people. Bye.